Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Podcast coming to you July 30th, 2025. I'm recording this late night, just before midnight, July 30th. And I guess I can't say I don't do late night pods. I do late night pods. I actually just finished recording the this week's edition of Falls Count Anywhere with Robert Genius. We did a SummerSlam preview, of course, and whatnot. And I'm getting this one in because this podcast will be my last show for at least 2 weeks. So this might be a little bit lengthy in comparison to the ones we do solo shows we do normally. I'm going to try to clear the palette here of topics that I have saved up since Sunday that I want to touch on, because this will be my last show for a while, for a week at least. I'm taking a little break. Now, you guys, this podcast, know that typically around this time of year, I do tend to take a week or two off. Now, in recent years, I was not taking breaks. I was spaced out shows here and there, or in recent years, I'll be honest, the last year or two, I've actually heightened some of the episodes because I've been just putting out content, honestly. But this summer has been a little not challenging. I mean, I'm having a great summer. My family, kids are out of school. All they'll be back in school within the next week and a half. But I've gotten sick a couple of times. At a couple of throat in situations where I found out recently that I had a lung infection that actually I've had for about a month or so. And a couple of days ago, I had a little bit of a stomach issue. Now, luckily, I'm okay now. But it made me think, it kind of reminded me, like, I love doing content. I love recording content. I love, putting out podcasts every so often. You guys know I do at least minimum 3 podcasts a week, if not more. But as you know, football's around the corner. And between September, December, January is typically the busiest time of the show. We pump out a shit ton of content around that time, and I do not want to get burnt out. So I made the decision probably last night that I was going to take some time off just to kind of recharge the battery a little bit. Now the plan is right now to take a week off for now. That's guaranteed a week. But to be honest with you, I am leaning towards taking probably 2 weeks off. So I may not be back here behind this microphone for probably till the earliest August 12th, probably. And we'll see how that goes. We'll do a week, and then we'll figure it out. We'll make week 2 optional. We'll see. Now, if there's breaking news that comes out with a big story, and I was teasing on the Falls Count Anywhere pod earlier that if there's something that happens, say, look, I'm not wishing this, obviously, but given the amount of big names that have passed away the last week or so, you can't rule it out. Let's say Ric Flair passes away. I'll pop in here and do a quick episode, even a short episode, reacting to the passing of Ric Flair. Otherwise, I'm going to be taking this time to just relax, catch up on content I'm behind on. But I'm also going to be working, though. I won't be lazy. This will be too lazy. I'll be putting out some clips and stuff on the YouTube page, on the socials, on the TikToks and the Instagrams. I'm also going to be preparing for the preview show, the big NFL preview show we do every year in August with Zach and Chris. I'll be doing prep for that. So I'll be working, but I'm not going to be doing stuff behind the microphone for at least a week, if not 2 weeks. of course, the schedule comes up, this year in the fall. I have a lot of commitments this year. I do obviously this show. I also do on my day job a weekly podcast, which is going to be even more work now. We're doing more time and more production for that. And then I also do the Huddle Up podcast every Tuesday nights, which will be, um, I'm not entirely sure I'll be doing that show every Tuesday going forward. Because there'll be some nights I'm going to need the Tuesday slot to do my show. Big Jim Ray knows that if I need those nights to do my own content or even take a break, I'm going to do so. But I do have commitments to do that show as well too during the fall. So we got a lot coming up. I'll be doing a lot of stuff here behind the scenes for the next 2 weeks, a week or two, whatever you call it, and we'll go from there. But don't miss you too much. I'm going fishing, as I said, for a little bit, but not for too long. Not for too long at all. So that's I got for you. So a lot of things I want to touch on today on the show. First on today was Ozzy Osbourne's funeral, a procession rather, in Birmingham, England. I'm very emotional. I didn't watch the entire thing. I watched clips of it. Watching Sharon Osbourne, emotional as she approached the gates to pay her last respects to Ozzy. Very, very, very emotional. A crowded site there in Birmingham. I did a little bit of reaction to Ozzy's passing on the Sunday show. I wasn't able to react in real time because I lost my voice. And that's one reason why I'm taking time away just to recharge the batteries. But again, the Ozzy, we're a week removed now, 8 days removed from Ozzy's passing. Not a surprise, obviously. We watched his final concert 3 weeks ago. And I told you guys on the show we did after that, we did actually was an episode called Salute the Sabbath. And I told you guys watching him perform there, it didn't feel like just a Sabbath goodbye. I feel like Ozzy was telling us that he was on the way out. And Ozzy's music's gone through the charts now, through the roof. A lot of his songs are charting very well on streams worldwide. Good to see that. I've been watching some stuff as of late. I remember the Osbourne show on MTV, and I used to watch that, in real time. And I love the show. Ozzy's character is incredible, loving father, husband, the whole nine. I was watching Ozzy and Sharon. They were married, I think 44 years, and they remind me a lot of my wife and myself. They're dynamic anyway. I remember watching it. I was watching an interview recently, an old interview, not old, but a couple of years ago, where Ozzy was talking about how he loves Sharon. He also sometimes hates her, and then he can't live without her. And to me, you look at Ozzy and Sharon, that is the perfect representation of what true love is. Nothing's perfect there. It's a lot of flaws. It's a lot of bumps in the road. My marriage is very similar. I was telling my wife earlier, that their marriage reminds me of ours. Where sometimes I love the shit out of you, and sometimes I just days I want to strangle you, but at the same time, I can't live without you. And Sharon and Ozzy might really, if you think about it, might be the greatest love story in entertainment. I mean, I'll got some other ones in the future. Maybe do a top 5, couples of all time. But I'll tell you what, Sharon and Ozzy, honestly, might be the greatest, one of the greatest couples in entertainment history. So, like I said, I was watching I watched the procession a little bit today. It was very, very emotional. Seeing Sharon and Kelly Osbourne, his daughter, and very emotional. Everybody's crying and whatnot. I also watched a little bit of the. I didn't see it last year in real time, but last year when Ozzy performed at the Rock Hall of Fame, when he got inducted as a solo artist, actually, I was watching a performance of a suit band. You had Maynard from Tool front running, front man. You had Zach Wild on guitar. You had Robert Trujillo on bass. You had Chad Smith from Two Peppers on drums, playing playing not the Sabbath song. They're playing Ozzy songs. Billy Idol did a song as well too, and very cool stuff, man. Very cool stuff. Ozzy will be missed. 76-year-old. He'll be missed. I'm glad people are really paying respects to the guy. And you guys know I'm a massive metal guy, heavy metal guy. And there is no Metallica, there is none of these bands I love, Megadeth. They don't exist without Ozzy Osbourne, man, and Black Sabbath. They just don't. So again, last goodbye, salute to Ozzy Osbourne, and thank you for the music. Thank you for the great years and the good times. You know. So, all right. As for another person that passed away, Hulk Hogan, we've been talking about him a lot on this feed on the False Count Anywhere. We did an episode on him on Saturday, reacting to his passing. We've been touching on that a little bit here and there. A lot of the commentary on Hulk Hogan's passing has been very, for me personally, very uncomfortable in a sense, because I won't use the word complicated because it's not complicated to me. I've always come to terms with who Hulk Hogan is, the character, who Terry Bollea was. I put the rest of my disdain for Hulk Hogan in recent years because of his comments he's made about people of my ilk, my color. I also come to terms with the fact that he gave us up to Christ a couple of years ago, and if he was truly genuine by that change, and he was truly sorry for what he did, it's his apology. I accept it without question. I'm a forgiving person. I'm not going to hold that cross the beer on my shoulder. That's not going to be me. And there's a lot of people who have different opinions on that, and you know what? They're right to their opinions. Their feelings are their feelings. If they think Hulk Hogan was the scum of the earth and they still feel that way, while I may feel a little uncomfortable at times, sometimes seeing that as a Hogan fan, but also coming to terms with who he is, was a human. That's their right, But I want to play a clip. Bomani Jones actually had a big segment on the show on Monday on Hulk Hogan, and I was actually stunned at some of his commentary on this because he was talking about Hogan, the wrestler, and he never understood. He basically prefaced it. He didn't understand why Hogan was so important as he was, because I'll play a clip here in a second, and then let's just say very critical, but again, he's the right to his opinion. Here's a clip here from the show The Right Time about Hulk Hogan, and basically saying he wasn't that guy. So play real quick, 1 second.
Do not have it. I did not see anything that I thought gave a real explanation as to why it was that this guy was that popular and that famous. He had to win over wrestling to move into this bigger world of pop culture fame. We all acknowledge that he was a bad. Popular wrestlers are good wrestlers. He wasn't exactly the coolest wrestler. I mean, he ain't no Ric Flair. Low key, the training, the prayers, and the vitamins, even though we found out, take vitamin D out.
Because the Wi-Fi, again, has been a little bit shaky on my part here for the last few weeks. But let's unpack what Bomani said there a little bit. Not understanding the situation, not understanding, why Hogan was the guy and why. I get that. The character's a little corny in hindsight, but you had to be there. And Bomani is my age, so he gets it too. He was the right guy at the right time. Sometimes a lot of why the Beatles are as big as they are. I always said for years the Beatles are overrated, but that's my opinion. Musically speaking, they're overrated. But the Beatles' success is largely wrapped in the fact that they were the right band at the right time, hit the right tone, and that's why they're big. Same with Elvis. A lot of artists, people, players, you name it, just hit the right tone at the right time. Hulk Hogan was that for pro wrestling. He hit the note at the right time. There's no question that Hulk Hogan may not have the biggest Q rating ever in wrestling history, but he's the most important character in pro wrestling history. That is a stone cold fact. Okay, we don't have what we have without Hulk Hogan. Okay, people talk about Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he saved Vince McMahon in the late '90s, from going bankrupt because they actually aired all that stuff. Well, my friend, no offense, we don't have a company to save. It was Hulk Hogan putting the WWE and wrestling on the map, putting pro wrestling and sports entertainment on the map. That's the bottom line. Hulk Hogan being a bad wrestler, that's weird because his matches were very repetitive. We get all that. But if you watch Hogan's work from New Japan, he's a completely different wrestler. Like, he knew how to work a match, but the things he was doing in the WWE, or the old WWF rather, didn't require him to be that guy. What required him to be Hulk Hogan in the 80s and early 90s was to be charismatic, big muscles, and oily, and the bandanas. It was all about the brand. No one really, honestly, back then cared about work rate matches in the same way. Now, I'm a Macho Man Randy Savage fan. He's my favorite wrestler of all time, personally. And maybe he could have been the guy going forward. Let's say if Macho Man was the guy in '84 that Vince taps to be the guy. It could have worked. In fact, Macho Man was actually, for a year, when Hogan went off to do the Holds Barred back in 1988, he was the guy for a while, and he did a very solid job. But he wasn't Hulk Hogan. He was not putting butts in seats. He wasn't moving the needle like Hulk Hogan was. That's the bottom line. And they tried this whole thing with other guys, Ultimate Warrior, that failed. Okay, Bret Hart, while he's probably the greatest work rate wrestler in history of the WWE and pro wrestling, was not Hulk Hogan. Okay, is it corny? Yes, but that was what the '80s were. I don't necessarily disagree with Bomani's whole idea that, that shit shouldn't have worked. But here's the bottom line. It did. It changed the business. And that's what we have to accept that. We just have to accept that. You know what I'm saying? And that's why he is what he is. I tell folks all the time, you can't do a top 5 list or any sort of list without Hogan being in the top 5. The very fact that we're now a week removed from his passing and we're still talking about this fucking guy should tell you how big he was. Okay? You can put this guy in any country, they know who Hulk Hogan is. You don't have to watch pro wrestling, Hulk Hogan is, because of that goatee, Fu Manchu mustache, and the bandanas, and the red and yellow. He was just that big. It didn't make sense, yes, but it is what it was. He was that big. Okay, he changed culture. He was a culture. He was a needle mover. Bottom line. Doesn't make any sense. I get it, but that's just who he was. And I tell folks, you're seeing in him in death why he's arguably the greatest of all time. That's not the bottom line. We're still talking about him. We're not good or bad. We're still talking about him. Like, most celebrities get a day. Most celebrities get a day when they die. They just get a day. But some icons get more. Like Michael Jackson passed away, he gets months. Okay, Prince got weeks. Okay, if you're an iconic person, you're getting multiple days. Hulk Hogan is now a week away removed from passing away, and we're still talking about him, and not just in the wrestling community. We're talking about Hulk Hogan also on CNN. We're still talking about having panels talking about his legacy, days removed from his passing. That's how big he is and was. Okay, so I've been really avoiding political talk on this podcast. Well, not avoiding it, but I toned it down by design because I'm just burnt out. But I want to talk about a little bit about Donald Trump and the Epstein thing. Now, I've never cared for Jeffrey Epstein case, even when he passed away, hung himself, whatever to call it, in 2019. Didn't care about it at the time because it felt obvious that anyone with a brain assumed that it was an inside job, and we knew there was probably people involved in that. But we always said, okay, well, we're not going to find out because the powers that be are not going to. They're not going to tell you anything unless they want you to know. But 2024, the Trump campaign, not even largely, but the Trump campaign had said, many of the people around the Trump campaign had said that they were going to release the files and the lists and all this stuff if Trump got reelected president. Okay, so a lot of people voted for Donald Trump, if not largely, a portion of the reason why for this case. And now we're 7 months in this administration, and we're not getting transparency on this case. And to the credit of a lot of Trumpers, a lot of MAGA, they are upset at Trump, at the people, Pam Bondi, the uh, um um and even president himself. And I think that is hurting his numbers. Fit the tariffs and everything else of that nature. This case is hurting his numbers. It's putting a cloud around his administration. And there was actually a thing that came out like yesterday that said that Donald Trump may have actually alluded to him being on the list. Now, just for the record, whether or not you believe Donald Trump was involved in Jeffrey Epstein more ways and in salacious ways that we may assume, just because on the list doesn't mean he actually did anything wrong. Okay, Jeffrey Epstein was a massive financier who had connections with many people, politicians, celebrities, pop stars, you name it, entertainers. So just because you're on the list doesn't necessarily mean you did anything wrong. Okay, it only puts you on the list. A list is a list, but you have to investigate said individuals. But the fact that Donald Trump has not been transparent enough in this case is a little bit troubling. Okay, and look, again, I'm someone who really doesn't give a fuck about the Jeffrey Epstein thing. I don't care, because if the powers that be want you to know about the situation, they're going to tell you, and clearly they don't want you to know. But the optics look really bad on Trump's part. I'll say that much. Do I think Trump had done bad things involving the Jeffrey Epstein case? I don't know. But the way he's acting, very nonchalant and I didn't, saying this and that, and then deflecting and bringing up Obama and bringing up other things. And he brought up something this weekend about how Obama and Beyonce should be arrested for campaigning for Kamala Harris, which is completely stupid. It's a distraction. Okay. If Donald Trump wants us to forget this shit, put out the list without fail. Tell Pam Bondi to put the list out. No more games here. No more of this stuff. And we'll go from there, and we'll see where it all lays. But until then, stop with the bullshit. Okay? Even people who you don't agree with politically, on principle, have a right to be upset. If you're a Trump supporter and you voted for Trump based on the Epstein list, and you're not getting what you want, you should be upset, without question. So put the list, bro. Put the list. All right. Thoughts and prayers. Well, not in a bad way, because he's free of cancer, but prayers up for Deion Sanders, coach of Colorado Buffaloes. So recently he had revealed that he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of bladder cancer. He went around surgery to remove his bladder, and the doctors now declare him cancer free. He announced it at a press conference on Tuesday, or Monday rather, saying he was cancer free. He's went through a lot of health issues recently. I know he had his couple of toes amputated on his foot about a year or two ago. Watching this stuff beforehand, it was very scary look to see Deion Sanders, a guy who's probably one of, if not the greatest athlete in sports history, being as vulnerable as he is and going through what he's going through. It's good to see him in good health. Now, I'll be honest with you, bladder cancer, I don't know how that affects him. He lost 25 pounds due to the illness and surgery. He's making new physical changes. I will tell you, this is definitely, he made a will in May, thinking it might be the end of him. I will say that, I'll be honest with you, I'm curious if he'll coach. He'll probably coach this year, but I'm really curious how he will adjust. I don't see Deion Sanders being long for the sidelines. I think after this year, there's a very good chance he may just call it quits and kind of keep it easy, because that job is very stressful. Okay, it's a very stressful job. But he does plan on coaching the team this year. He said the whole thing was very challenging emotionally. But he's ready to focus on the team. He's strong and ready. So again, shout out to Coach Prime for getting his health back. God bless him. Obviously, I love Deion Sanders, one of my all-time athletes ever. All right, let's talk NFL football now. You guys know I hate the Eagles. I am not an Eagles fan whatsoever. However, I am very fascinating at some of the disrespect that Jalen Hurts is getting from many people in the media, from athletes in the media. This is a guy who just won a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl MVP. You can argue was still an MVP 2 years ago when he lost to Kansas City in the first Super Bowl against the Chiefs. Had a phenomenal game. He made one mistake. But everybody's putting up their list for the year. I'll be doing my own list, my top 32 quarterback rankings as part of our preview show we do in the middle of August. And I'm gonna play a clip. Hopefully this clip works. Well, Cam Newton has a podcast. He's actually a fun, very good podcaster. Actually, a lot of his content is really good. But Cam Newton, very critical of and basically in so much that he is a in Jalen Hurts. And you guys know I'm a massive fan of Jalen Hurts. Even though I'm not an Eagles fan, I love that kid. I've been following that kid since college. So it's uncomfortable for me to see that stuff. So here's the clip real quick of Cam Newton on the show talking about Jalen Hurts and why Lee's is not a top 10 quarterback in the league. Let's see this works real quick. Give us one.
And do when you're throwing to a guy like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. We have tight end skills that you have a dominant defense, the best running back in the game. Download Madden and see how many stars is on the offensive side of Philly. Like you got so games that I'm going off of. It's like, bro, even when the tush push, you got 5 people pushing you, bro. You got a solid group around you, dog. And but just because he's a great guy, that don't mean I can't critique his game.
Be fair, be honest and fair and transparent. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I really don't. Where I get critical of Cam is more so the top 10 thing. And for the record, I see his point. He has a point. But look, here's what I'll agree with Cam. He's not my top 5. Jalen Hurts is not my top 5. There's people out there who says probably Eagle fans. I know some people Eagle fans I'm close to probably make case for number 5 behind the big 4 of Burrow, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson. But he's not a top 5 quarterback. I agree with that. He has a great team around him. But here's what I'll say about Jalen Hurts: the intangibles that he brings to the Eagles. Very few guys can do what he can do. And furthermore, I don't see 10 guys in this league right now better than Jalen Hurts. Like, who do you consider right now? Who would you consider better than Jalen Hurts right now in the league? Okay, so the top 4 guys I mentioned, obviously the 4 guys of Jackson, Mahomes, Burrow, and Allen. Okay, Matthew Stafford I put ahead of Hurts. That's 5. I might consider Jane Daniels. Oh, that's 1 year in. It's a little too soon, but we'll see. I'm not putting Baker Mayfield over Jalen Hurts. I don't know if I'll put Justin Herbert over him right now at this point. Justin Herbert has way too many failures in the playoffs to just give it to him. I think Jalen Hurts is not only a top 10 quarterback, he's a snug top 10 quarterback in the league at this point now. And yes, he does have a top defense, best running back in the league, best O-line in the league, best defense in the league. Yes. But can you plug any quarterback that's on the bottom of that list of the 10 and below 10 and they have the same results in Philadelphia? I don't know, because I don't know if other quarterbacks are as mentally strong and bring the same intangibles that Jalen Hurts brings to the Eagles. And look, I don't like sitting here defending the Eagles, bro. I hate the Eagles with a fucking passion. I can't stand them. But the truth is, the guy is an incredible quarterback. He's a really good quarterback. We saw when he had less before Saquon Barkley 3 years ago in the other Super Bowl what he can do with football. Okay? Just because he doesn't throw the ball 40 times a game, he doesn't have to. But he can if he needs to. And he's won a lot of games doing so. So it's not fair to put it against him. Again, Newton's critique is actually fair. I just don't think his critique is bad. I just don't agree with the whole not being in the top 10 part. That part is a little more egregious, because I just don't think there are 10 quarterbacks right now in today's NFL that are better than Jalen Hurts. I just don't. You can't, and right now you can't sell me on that whatsoever. So there's that. All right, another story I'm very intrigued by right now in the NFL is the Christian Wilkins situation. It was a tackle of the Raiders who recently got cut after his 1 year of the team. The team actually signed him to a 4-year contract, $110 million contract with $8 million guaranteed. The reason of the cuts is reportedly from some insiders, I think it was Adam Schefter, suggested that he had playfully kissed a team on the forehead, which a teammate reportedly found offensive. The Raiders cited that no clear path or future play from Christian. Basically, he's an unsigned free agent with a immediate future, in doubt right now. Well, not in doubt, but uncertain right now. Obviously, there's been a lot of reports that he's been kind of this way, a little bit of not a cancer or not a bother to the locker room, but last season with the Raiders that he was a little bit of an issue. Now, having said that, there's a lot of people who will speculate that some of the things might be a little ridiculous. Like, I know Adam Schefter had one report about this, and then Mike Florio said a counter report said that's not necessarily true. And also the Raiders, do benefit from cutting him because they get some cap relief too as a possibility. I think what I'm reading right here, they voided $35 million of his salary and remaining guaranteed money. He has a grievance. They filed a grievance with the NFLPA to contest the voting as guarantees. It was filed a couple days ago. Here's the thing: the story is kind of stupid anyway. Now it was disrupting the locker room. Maybe I understand why you want that in the locker room, but up to last year, there had never been reports of Christian Wilkins being any sort of a hindrance in the locker room. Certainly not in Miami. He dominated Miami, and he got a big contract with the Raiders as a result. So there's that. The biggest story here is this for me, and no one's talking about this because they're so enamored by the whole story of what he might have not done in the locker room. You don't have a guy who was a top 3 or 4 guy in his position now available to sign anywhere and probably for less money. So if I'm the Raiders or even the Eagles, if I'm the Bills, any of these contenders that has a spot open for a guy of his caliber, if your culture can take him in, which I don't honestly, I think a lot of this stuff is blown out of proportion, honestly. But if they can take him in, and to boot, the Raiders will have not a lot to stand on because the Raiders' culture in general has been shitty anyway for years. So I'm not going to take the Raiders' word at full confidence, honestly, because the Raiders, again, they just do what Raiders do. If I'm the Eagles or I'm the Bills, the Ravens, in these contending teams, the Packers, I am right now trying to sign this guy ASAP. He could be the missing piece to your team to put you over the top. The Dolphins is there's been speculation with the Dolphins here, but that's probably unlikely because the Dolphins cap situation is not really good for them, and they desire for a younger, cheaper core on the line. So if I'm a contending team, I'm looking at this guy saying I need to sign this guy. So, but it's a very fascinating story, but also one is like, what do you believe? I mean, seriously. As for more football talk here, Madden ratings. The Madden ratings were revealed. There was actually a significant class of players who started with a 99 rating. I haven't played Madden in a long time. I have thought about getting back into Madden again, gaming a little bit this year. But at the same time, it's like, well, I don't have time to game. A lot of my spare time, I here behind a microphone doing podcasts. So I don't know if I have time for that. But we have a number of players there this year who were 99, who were ranked or 99 overall on Madden. For example, Saquon Barkley, a 99, who's also the current athlete for Madden 26. Jamar Chase, a 99. You got Josh Allen, 99. Justin Jefferson, Lamar Jackson, Lane Johnson from the Eagles, well too. Myles Garrett. The 99 class the year before that was Christian McCaffrey, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Trent Williams. Myles Garrett was actually on there last year too as well. I have no problem with this list, honestly. I know some people say, well, why is Lamar Jackson there? Stop. Oh, he hasn't been to the Super Bowl yet. That doesn't matter, dude. He's still arguably the most productive player in the league. And so is Josh Allen. Okay? And when you see my rankings, my quarterback rankings at the start of this year, you'll see why Madden got it right here. Okay? Other players that probably should be considered 99, Pat Mahomes was there last year. His production has gone down a little bit. He's still arguably top 3 quarterback in the league still. But I they got that right, I guess. Travis Kelce getting older too. I don't know any of the players. Jamar Chase is the 99, so they got that right too also. I'm trying to figure out other players who should be considered 99, and I'm really thinking about that. I don't really see. I mean, Micah Parsons maybe, but he's injury prone now too also, so maybe not him as well. Derrick Henry, no, he's too old. So the guys here they got it correct. They got it correct here. With the rankings here, I have no problem with it whatsoever. The right players. I don't see any other players that, they had Trent Williams last year and he's not there anymore because of injuries. Injuries matter. Availability matters. We know this already. So there's just that. As for that, we do my final top 5 for a while before I go on my little break here. I am going to reveal now my top 5 NFL coaches on the hot seat coming to this year. 5-1. Okay. You guys know I love these top 5s, ranking things. Number 5, my guy, Brian Daboll in New York. Now, I don't think it is necessary for Daboll to make the playoffs, the Giants make the playoffs, rather, to save his job. However, I do think, going 3-14 last year, you have Russell Wilson's quarterback and Jackson Dart as a backup right now. I do think they need to at least win 6-7 games this year and show some progress to save his job. Him and Joe Shane, the GM in New York. Okay, but he's on the hot seat entering the year. Number 4, this might shock some of you guys, but follow me here. John Harbaugh for the Baltimore Ravens. Couple playoff failures, losing to KC 2 years ago in the title game, which is actually his fault, in my opinion. Losing to Buffalo in the divisional round last year. Baltimore is on the cusp. Baltimore is arguably the favorite to win the whole thing this year, but according to a lot of betting sites. And it feels like that maybe that John Harbaugh has reached his zenith there. He's been there a long time. Sometimes you being somewhere in the same place after a while gets a little old. Now, I say that also knowing that Mike Tomlin also is a guy that has been there even longer. But I am not advocating for them to fire John Harbaugh. He's a great coach. But maybe another voice is needed. I don't know. Maybe Baltimore looks at that situation and says, well, if we're trying to get to the next step, that maybe we need to look at this situation a little more closely. We'll see. Number 3, Sean McDermott in Buffalo. Same situation. Bills team that, once again, AFC title game last year, lost in dramatic fashion to KC. They should be really good this year. You got arguably the best quarterback in football, Josh Allen. But okay, what's their ceiling? Can they crack that ceiling? That's the question for Josh Allen. For all the criticism about Lamar Jackson not getting to the Super Bowl, Josh Allen deserves that same criticism as well too. Now, Josh Allen absolutely last year deserved the MVP last year. I said this, but but Sean McDermott, again, another guy that he was on hot seat 2 years ago, and he saved his job because they made a late playoff run last year. But at what point do you start looking at the situation and saying, well, maybe a new voice might be needed? I don't know. All right. Number 2, again, not a big shock, but given how this team has operated this offseason, you have to at least give some credence. And that's Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh. They signed Aaron Rodgers. They re-signed TJ Watt to a short-term 3-year deal. The Steelers have been very unorthodox this summer when it came to moves and whatnot. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out for Tomlin. The Steelers don't like firing coaches. He's been a coach there for nearly 20 years. They only have 3 coaches in the entire tenure of that franchise: Bill Cowher, Chuck Noll, and now Tomlin. It's not in their DNA to fire coaches on a whim, and certainly there won't be a whim here. But at the same time, they also this team acted a little bit differently than usual. Very unorthodox for a Steelers team. A lot more aggressive when it came to signings this year. So something to look at there. But number 1 is easy. It's far and away the most pressure in the league. Mike McDaniel in Miami. They have to make the playoffs this year. Anything less than a playoff berth is fireable. He might have win a playoff game, to be honest with you. But I think making the playoffs is the first step to saving his job. I believe the honeymoon in Miami is over for Mike McDaniel. It is time to put up a shut up. And that's how it goes. So, again, Brian Daboll, John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, Mike Tomlin, and Mike McDaniel are my top 5 coaches right now on the hot seat entering the 2025 NFL season. So, for me, that will do it for this podcast. Dated now, July 31st, 2025. I am on X at EJ Christian 7. Earnestly podcast across all podcast catchers. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. Video side at youtube.com/Earnest Christian. The clips of the show on the socials at TikTok which by the way, check out TikTok too also. I real fast before we get out of here. We have recorded a couple weeks ago on this speed a new basketball retro podcast, me and Zach. And we were doing a redraft for 2012. And we had a segment in there discussing Draymond Green and about his Hall of Fame case. And we put a clip out, 30-second clip, but put a clip out about 2 days ago on TikTok, which went viral. On YouTube went viral as well too. There's a lot of opinions on that one. So if you see that clip on the socials, check it out, get involved, join the community, other Earnestly podcasts. But that one went viral. I think the YouTube clip I just checked a little while ago is almost 4,000 clips, 4,000 views on YouTube, and about 2,000 on TikTok right now. And a lot of comments, a lot of likes. Very controversial. A lot of people disagree with what I'm saying or agree with what I'm saying. So check it out if you get a chance. But yeah, all the socials on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube at Earnestly Pod. So that's for me. My voice is cracking again. I'm still not full 100% there, which is why I need this break now. So, guys, we will talk to you guys soon. We will see you guys in at least either a week or 2 weeks If you guys posted, follow me on Twitter, of course. East Coast 7.